All right, Dan, here we are. Yay, I can't wait to talk with you. It's always an honor and a pleasure to find out what's going on in your world. Welcome to
Thank you.
Advisory in Real Life, live stream on LinkedIn. I'm Jeannie Whitehouse, and I am honored, thrilled, excited, beyond words to be here with Dan Luthi.
Oh, thank
Dan,
you so much.
tell us about you and what it is you do in your company. I love the name, and look at that cool picture, y'all. I'm jealous. Talk
You love our
about.
logo?
Yeah, I love that. There's a match, right? On
Yes, it
fire.
is. Yeah,
On
I love it.
fire.
It's truly. I mean, so I have to say this. We used to have a really boring name, like a really boring name, and we
What was
changed it.
it? What was
Our
it?
name was, and one of my partners might be mad because he picked the name before I started, but we were called Dashboard Accountants,
Oh yeah,
and
boring.
yeah, it was really
Boring.
boring, and we changed it. I've been with the company for almost 12 years, and he started it
Wow.
14 years ago. And we changed it about 3 years into me being with the firm to Ignite Spot. And when we changed it, he and I and our other partner Ryan, so it's me, Ryan Steck, and Eddie Hood, all three of us are partners. We came together and really discussed what was our intent of service for our clients, like what did we want to try to be, and it really was one of our core values was trying to be a catalyst to helping small businesses grow. And so we
Love it.
spun off of that, of being an ignition or a initial space for people to grow, and or to a fire to be lit on someone. And so Ignite
Yeah.
Spot was kind of the trigger of that piece. And the little matchstick guy, his name is actually Sparky. So so we have a little name that goes along with it. So that's really where it came from. So I actually love our logo, and Eddie's put a lot of time and
You
energy into
should.
building it. So um,
Did you have a brand company that worked with you to help you figure that out, or did you guys come up with it?
we did it all ourselves, really. I
Wow,
mean, it
I'm
really started
impressed.
out with us. Truly, Eddie. Eddie is the brainchild of a majority of us as an organization, as a brand, and how we relate to everything. And is brilliant at it, and has done a good job at really creating that picture of who we are. And I try to personify that in all the conversations I have with people, and he does an amazing job there. And Ryan, of course, does. It's really the part that keeps us in compliance with everything, and advancement with our CFO and controller services that we're building out as well. And so we try to be a good balance between the three of us on all of that. So
That's fantastic. So you also have, and I got your stuff from LinkedIn, of course, since we're on LinkedIn Live.
yeah,
And you also were an advisor to a bunch of different tech companies. How does that happen? I mean, I do that too, but want you to share with people, how do you get in a position where companies come and ask you for input or get on their advisory panel? How does that happen, Dan? What'd you do to get in front of these people so that they knew you were different from some of the other
definitely.
folks?
For me, my the first panel or the first advisory council I was ever on was with Intuit. And it really started with me having a really solid relationship with my rep at
Yeah.
Intuit, and always being willing to give constant feedback and concern about the product and desire to learn about what's coming out and development. And Kim Austin, who was my
Oh,
rep at
yeah.
the time, who
He's
is truly one of the most amazing people ever.
now at Avalera.
Yeah, now
He's
at
now
Avalera,
wearing orange. Yeah.
definitely, and she also introduced me to Avalera, also, which I have a deep love for Avalera as
Yeah.
well, which I share some council function on that side too. But she gave me an opportunity, recommended me to apply for Intuit's accountant council, because she felt that my thought process, or my considerations for how we can help the space would be helpful. And luckily enough, I was able to be accepted and be brought in. And for me, it was just being able to share my honest feedback about
Yeah.
what our clients needed. And it
Yeah.
was just saying, here's what's really great for us, and here's what's working really well. Can you do this? Can you do this? Can you do this? And I think
Yeah.
being willing to be honest, and being willing to take considerations around what the product is and how the product is moving, but also what our clients needs, and being willing to explain that to both sides. I think software companies really value that. I think
They
that
do.
that's really created a lot of help for me, and a lot of help for them in that same space.
And they appreciate from people who are actually using the product. I mean,
Yeah,
we're in the weeds with our clients in the bookkeeping role, and all of those companies are products that I use as well. And
yeah,
knowing the pain and suffering, and also knowing, um, more about software and tech and being able to leverage that in the business process understanding with clients, saying this isn't going to work, you guys. And that's one of the things that's a benefit of being at this level of connection to clients, being in the transactional space, but also having a focus on industries, which is one of the beauties of the work that I get to do, is that I'm working with wineries all the time, and I can go into products like this and say, wineries needed to do this. Yeah. Can you? And, things like, I know you have many of the same things. You have some focused business areas as well in your practice. What are your focuses? You have a couple, I think.
We do have a couple of focuses. We've always been a general practitioner, but we generally focus on marketing and advertising agencies. That's been a big part for us as an organization for a long time, as well as just general professional service organizations. We do quite a bit with them, and also just mid-market clients as a whole, of people who are on that growth trajectory. And so I think for us, that's been also a big value add in that conversation with each of these software companies as well, too, of because we have versatility, and I truly have a great team who has some really vast knowledge of each of these different industries. It allows me to collect that information and give that positive feedback directly to them, saying, hey, in inventory situations, this works really well and this isn't, in job costing situations, this works really well and this doesn't, and payroll's falling apart over here. How can you fix that? And so having a single voice from a really valuable group of people my team is just phenomenal to be able to provide that to us.
Yeah, it's great. It's great to have the right team. It's a tough thing these days to keep and find the right team. And so you're very fortunate, Dan, but it's not a surprise that people want to come work with you and your company. I think it's really funny that you guys work with marketing clients and yet you did your own branding thing.
Well, I think that's the part that probably drew us the most to it honestly, that we love the aspect of the marketing piece, and it's something that is a natural passion for us. And a lot of them like what we've created from a marketing standpoint. We do use a marketing agency now that helps us to be able to help develop things further and help manage that, just because of growth and size and development for that space. But when we first started, it was actually our first logo was a flame that Eddie hand drew on one of his like a stylus or iPads or something like that, and it was there for a really long time, so it was really cool.
And I also think it's funny that your thing is ignite and mine is impact, and those are the words. When I had a branding company, and I'm sure Madeline Pratt, who worked with me on the branding at Fearless Foundry, who does really cool stuff. They kept, when I started this Impactful Advisor, which I launched during COVID, she kept asking me, what is it about? What is it? And the word impact, I think, came up in every single sentence. Why would somebody want this? And I kept going, because we want to make an impact on clients. That's why we're accountants, in my opinion. Impact, impact, impact. It's the same thing. It's like, I want to be a catalyst. I want to make a difference for that client. I want to fire them up and get them moving. I don't just want to tell them stuff that they don't care about, 6 years after it's over. I don't want to just show 100%. Up with history. And I think that's one of the reasons that we connected. And Dan, when did we first connect?
We first connected in person in 2019 at T-Sheet Summer Camp.
Which was the coolest event ever, y'all. If there's ever anything, and this was Misty Mejia put this event. It was behind it. Misty and Allison. Well, Allison was at a different company, but Misty was at T-Sheets at the time and put this together. And it was ridiculously amazing. And for all of us that got to go there, it was like a bonding exercise. We got to learn about people. I think, Dan, we hung out and started talking about advisory. That's how nerds do, y'all. We have parties. They had all these cool events and food. And we were just going deep and talking about advisory, and it was amazing. Yeah. We just had a lot of common themes, I think, that came up.
Well, and I think the part that I love about those kind of conversations, and why I loved that conference probably more than really any other conference, was the way that it was presented. It was built to be a catalyst for real conversation. The session topics were built to, and Misty and I have talked about this after. She and I actually were talking about this yesterday, which is funny. She mentioned, she goes, we tried to build it so that we were giving back to each person there. But the part that was exciting about it is it actually just gave me more fuel to have deeper conversation. And you and I dug in deep on conversation. And Patrick dug in deep on conversation.
And another great human.
So I think that's one of the parts that are so great with all of those kind of moments, is you get the ability to really talk with people who care as much as you do about this industry and want to make their clients' lives better. It's not just about how can we get the next dollar in the door and how can we rack a bank faster, but
Yeah.
What are we trying to do to make the industry and the customer have a greater experience and receive more value from what it is that we're trying to provide?
And that's one of the things. And Dan and I are also members of Accounting Salon, which is a group founded by Amanda Aguilard and Jeff. And I forgot Jeff's last name. I'm sorry, Jeff. They came together from Elephant Training and brought together people. And we all got in the room for the first meeting. I remember us looking at each other and going, what are we all doing here? What do we have in common? And do you remember what they said, Dan?
I don't, actually.
Amanda walked around and said, you're here because you are trying to move the profession forward and you're nice people. And we all looked and I went, somebody didn't get all the info right. On what ground? I mean, that was a huge compliment to be included in that group. But also the group is fostered to allow us to talk to each other and to support and leverage each other and to celebrate successes and all those things. But we also have this really cool thing where the vendors come in and add a whole different dynamic and aren't there to sell us crap, which is what we get most places, but there to really bring in perspective that we may not have otherwise. So it's fun. Okay. So
well, and I think,
go ahead, Dan.
I think to it, well, and I think the part that I love about it as well is I mean, truthfully, it's one of those areas where there's a whole lot of alpha conversation and alpha people in those meetings, but the respect for the product and the respect for the values and the respect for the core deliverable that we're all trying to get to is so deep in those conversations. And that's what it makes you want to come back every single year because of it.
Yeah, I'm getting a weird thing on your mic or something from when you're talking. It periodically it'll do a weird vibration thing, but it's okay. It overcomes it. So, on this next slide, this is Basset Hounds are my brand because I'm from the South and because I'm floppy and sloppy and whatever. But this represents to me what advisory is all about. It's about not talking but listening to what clients want and then supporting them in finding their own answers that help them achieve that goal. But this slide also represents a response to my team when they said, do you have a script for what you're going to do with Dan? And I said, no, I'm going to play it by ear. So I'm playing it by ear in some sense, but I'm also a big believer that our role as accountants and our role as we shift to advisory is listening more than talking. What do you think about that, Dan? And that's a hard thing for us to accept, I think.
Oh, 100%. I mean, I think one of the biggest struggles that we run into is oftentimes we build a complete agenda for our conversations with our clients, and we go in with this expectation of it's going to be bullet point A, B, C, D, and E. And we miss out on hearing, I actually need this. I actually need this. And we've now completely gone over, we've completely changed the expectation, and the customer's like, yeah, that's cool, but you missed what I need, and they don't feel that value from you anymore. And they start looking somewhere else, or they start wondering what your relationship is really driven off of at that point in time.
I think the other thing that we do is we find a problem, right? We're there to be the expert. If we have that focus, then our job, if we think I'm here to be the expert, which means really, Dan, that I'm here to prove how smart I am, right? Would you agree with that?
Definitely.
Yeah. And that's an ego thing for me. As soon as they identify a problem, we go right into solving it and bring up a spreadsheet, right? 100%. I mean, or is that just me? I just bring up the spreadsheet as quick as I can.
I love the spreadsheet, but I also love my Fathom reports. I'm going to be honest.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. We could talk about Fathom. We can do another session just talking about all the stuff we love about Fathom. But if we dive into that one symptom, and let's say if we were a doctor and somebody said my arm hurts, and we just went and put a Band-Aid on the wound, right? That would solve the problem for the minute, but we'd miss the fact that they have some underlying skin disease that's going to cause that to keep happening, or that there's a vitamin deficiency, or a million other things that one sore could just be the tip of the iceberg or the tip of the skin or whatever it is. And we aren't solving the real problem. That's what we tend to do as traditional accountants. So why did your company start out with sort of this advisory, different perspective? Where did that come from, Dan? How did you guys get so smart?
Honestly, I think it was, our origin. I like to call it our origin story because I think that's really where it really began from. Is Eddie as a start when he left public accounting, left because he had to tell a small business owner after going through an audit that their cash balance was actually lower, $50,000 lower than what their bookkeeper had reported, and the guy literally fell to his knees and started crying. And,
oh, God.
and honestly, he, like, Eddie took that personal. He's like, I mean, he wasn't even a part of the bookkeeping team.
We do take it personally. I
and
think
that,
we all do.
and he's like, there's something broken about the way that this is done. There's something broken about the way that these pieces, these pieces are connected. And so he started, a Dashboard Accounts at the time, or Ignite Spot, with the intent of, how can we change the way customers experience bookkeeping? How can we change the way that data is driven to them? How can we provide them with proactive relationships that give them the ability to be able to make better decisions? And so that they're not waiting 3 months to be able to see details and content, but that the tools we can use and that the conversations we can have really drive deeper comprehension into how their business can grow, and educate them at the same time, not just talk accounting jargon the entire time with them and make them feel stupid because they don't know what a balance sheet is, but really take the time to make it personal to them and help them understand the piece with it. And to be honest with you, I grew up in with the mindset of working in small businesses, and I worked for several small businesses, and was a very actually blue collar intended background for me. I grew up with the intention of owning a woodworking shop with my brother, and fell in love with accounting when I was going to school. And so I always had a love for the small business atmosphere. And when Eddie told me this story, I was like, yep, this is it. I'm not going anywhere else. And I haven't been anywhere else because of it.
We share the why, right? You share the why. It's the same
100%.
why I have. It's like, I don't want anybody to suffer like my clients.
Yep.
I did tax, and I had to tell them they had money, and I knew they didn't have cash, and I didn't know what to tell them to do about it. It's a miserable feeling for, I think, all of us in accounting.
And it breaks their hearts. That's the part that's the hardest, is when you have to have that conversation with someone that they can't do something, or they have to take away from their employees, or they can't grow, or they can't do this big marketing campaign they were planning, which they felt like was going to really change the way that their business was growing, because the report was 3 weeks late.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Like,
it's so sad.
That completely is deflating. Yeah, 100%.
I know. So I just want to have a shout out to the people joining us from LinkedIn. We're so glad you're here. Pete, it's great to see you. Trisha, thank you for that. Yeah, Trisha, Secret Circle Summer Camp. You got to know the right people, y'all. Get into these secret societies. It ain't that secret. And it's a really rare opportunity. And again, sometimes you don't even know how people find you. But it's about, I think, the way people get seen is to contribute things. And I know anybody in accounting is always looking to contribute to the vendors that we work with, and that has to be in a positive way. So, there's some people who are complaining about everything and never contribute positives. I was in software companies. I was at Sage. I was at ACPAC. I was at Navision. And there were people who complained and never had a solution. And then there were people who were proactively involved in helping you figure something better out. Those are the people we called, not the complainers. So, it's trying to be proactive in helping these companies with really an intention of serving your own clients. And I know we all do that. And so, it's when you do it enough, and also just being out there and actively speaking, which is how I got visibility. I started that a long time ago. And sometimes I think I've been speaking for so long, people don't want to hear me anymore. Hopefully, I can help elevate some other speakers, people like Dan, and get them on main stages and places like that.
Well, I was gonna mention to this. I mean, your comment about the conversation with software companies. I mean, the conversation with them is no different than the conversation with our clients. I mean, if you're having a conversation with your client that is always talking about how they're terrible at giving you receipts, and they're terrible at providing you with reporting information for, receivables or whatever it is, that client doesn't want to work with you. You're not valuable to them at that point in time. You're not, to your point, you're not being impactful in their life. You're actually being a hindrance. And the same thing happens with software companies. When you're talking to them, you're a hindrance. They don't want to talk to people who don't want to actually help them to develop. And so when you treat those partnerships as true partnerships of give and take, knowing that sometimes you have to take your own lumps for things you missed or things you failed with, and vice versa, you communicate the value add and you help them to be able to understand those things, the relationship becomes a very deep, valuable relationship of something that will stand the test of time, no matter what's going on with it. And that client will grow and the vendor will grow because of it. And that's really the part that I love seeing with those pieces, because that's really where the small business develops and where you really start to change that development. And the software does too.
It's right. We're on the same team, and you can make it an adversarial relationship. But I think that one of the big opportunities for us is to then consult with that company. It's one of the benefits I have of working in the wine industry. I know the products that my clients are using, and I know there's some weaknesses in some of them. So I spend time working with those vendors. And that's additional revenue for the firm. I can be a consultant to the firm, and then I can also provide services around the software when I go deep enough to know it. So that's an opportunity for you as an accountant to expand your impact. There I go using the impact word again. In your own business, and also free you from some of that mundane stuff that you may want to be reducing in your own practice.
100% agree. 100% agree.
So Dan, talk about level 5. I know we had a conversation, and you have some direct connection now. Tell us about that. How did you get there, and what did you like about this whole Mentor Plus, a toolkit created by my friend Edie Osborne at Mentor Plus? I trained in it in 2000. We took it online. I worked with her to take her materials and put it online in, I believe, 2018. And now I got the rights during COVID to teach and mentor people in using these tools in their practice. So tell me what about the conversations and discussions we had about this appealed to you?
Definitely. So you and I talked about this when we, way back in 2019, it feels like, decades ago.
I know.
About it feels like it, right?
In COVID years, that's a decade.
We talked about the just the need for this change in the way that people were developing, and you started talking about some of the stuff that you had worked and you trained on with Edie, and in 2000 we had another conversation because I was working on trying to build out something for my team, and one of the things that I recognized was, sure, I have a voice and I like my voice. I mean, I feel like I'm pretty comfortable with it. But the other thing that I found was that, at least that I was noticing, was as much as my team may think I'm good at some things, they prefer sometimes to hear from other people in the industry who help them grow as well. And so you and I started a conversation about going down this road, and you presented the program to me, and I fell in love with it because it was really built around the entire conversations you and I had been having for over a year at that time. The hard part for me is COVID kind of happened and the world kind of fell apart for a little bit, and our organization changed quite a bit. And so fast forward to 2022, I came back and I said, Jeannie, I'm ready to move forward with a handful of my team that I feel like are the right people to help us launch a deeper advisory service in our organization. And so I've got 3 amazing members of my team who are running through this program. And I love that they're getting firsthand experience from someone who's not me, but someone who is an expert in how to really communicate and how to understand and how to listen and how to develop outside of it. And the funny thing is, I actually asked them today, like, what are your 3 to 5 key takeaways? And one of the big things that all of them focused on is the key takeaways they're coming away from your training so far is number 1 is the why. Paying attention to the why, and knowing what that why is from the client and meshing it with your why, as well as making sure that you're not getting lost in what you want. And those are the things that accountants really struggle with, because we as analytical thinkers think P&L and balance sheet, black and white. This is how it's going to be. Here's my story. I want to wreck the bank. I want to go through it.
I want to wreck the bank.
And when you mesh in the why is that business selling widget A, B, and C? Why are they trying to move into this different market? What is their intent? What is their focus? Your mind as an accountant completely changes on, well, if we have this conversation about your cost, and we have this conversation about your margins, and we have this conversation about this, now all of a sudden that business owner sees a completely different light of their world. And so that's the part that I loved about their feedback. And they're really, they've been in the program for a little over a month now, or about a month and a half. And they're loving all of it because of the way that you're really changing that perspective of not just focusing on the black and white detail that comes through the bank feed.
So that reminds me of one of the tools that is my favorite tool. When I first saw this, it was like mind blowing. I call it the scope grid. It's called the scope matrix, I think, in the actual toolkit. And the toolkit walks you through the core accounting technical foundation that we all have. That's what Ed Kless and Ron Baker, the value guys and the trash timesheet guys, would call table stakes.
Yep.
If you're an accountant, you better darn sure get the technical stuff right, and it better be accurate.
Yep.
And so those are the skills that we have. And so, but there are things we can do even at that level that add more value to our clients. And so that's where it starts. But what this journey in advisory is about moving from that accuracy focus to relevance. What does this stuff mean to the people in the company that we count on to move the needle on the business? So level 1 is the technical stuff. Level 2 is really educating your clients. And that's where we use Fathom to show them how they can improve different metrics. Level 3 is about discovering what's going on with the clients. And this document, hopefully you're going to be able to see, is what we do with it in our firm. And this is called the scope assessment. And this is my CPA firm where I have the benefit, the luxury of getting to play with wineries, where they put up with me 2 days a week as a consultant. And we use this scorecard as part of our intake for our clients. And this corner is where that why goes. When I talk to the client, I go, we ask them about their financial, customers, operations, people, and end in mind. A big thing we never traditionally ask them about. We just dive into the broken, what we could do better financial thing. This one box is where we spend our lives as a firm typically. But when we go down to the why, we understand why they're doing whatever it is they're doing. Then we can align the rest of the business perspective with that. And that's what, to me, and that's why that's as far as we've gotten with your group. They're moving through these different tools. And that's a huge shift for us. I mean, 100%. I don't go in and say, why are you doing this? And first of all, that feels like, well, duh, they're trying to make money, right? Or if they're a winery, they're clearly trying to make wine. But why? What brought you to this? And that gives you this emotional connection to the work, but it also helps us check every decision they make against this thing. If this is why you're here, then why are you not spending more money on people? Or why aren't you doing this? Or, you know, why are you stopping? Why aren't you looking at the seating in your tasting room to make it more comfortable? Or why aren't you doing this or that or whatever? So if we don't know that and we just dive into fixing the financial challenge, we are missing the boat completely, and we're missing value opportunity for ourselves. Oops, I went right to where to find you. There we go. So that's the journey that we're taking them on, Dan.
One, and I love that, because I think, to your point, you know, one of the other members of my team, her name's, you know, Sarah DeAngelis. She made the comment of the intimate connection. And I think the part that's really important about the word intimate connection is it is personal.
It is.
It's really getting to know who they are. And you may not know who their kids are. You may not know what their dog's name is or anything like that, but you know their personal desires for their business growth and their vision and their passion for it and what their intent is. And what's exciting when you know those things, you can actually help them to be able to see why the number's changing, help them to achieve that. And when you encourage them and coach them, it helps them to visualize how that future and that goal and that objective they have is going to actually come to fruition, whether it's to exit the organization, whether it's to scale into something bigger, or whether it's to be able to add a new service line. And so that intimate relationship, I think, is so important. And I think it's something that oftentimes we really do miss on what we're trying to create in that customer connection.
Well, I think the other thing is, you know, so one of the things that's different about this grid, the scope grid, is first of all that we cover 5 areas of the business: financial, customers, operations, people, and end in mind. But next, so we ask them what is working, because we never think about that. Think of many things we do right in a day. We all can list 10,000 things we screwed up, or at least I can, because I screw up a lot. Right? Those are top of mind, but not all the millions of things that we've gotten right over the years. Yeah. So first we have them capture the good stuff so that they can celebrate that and also repeat it. Then we have them list what's broken across the areas, not just the financial. And then ideal outcome. There's the vision. What is it you're trying to do? Why? How? What does it look like if we have everything going the way you want it to be? And those are things they don't often think about as owners. We're 100%. Just doing a lot of the time. And Dan, think about it in our own jobs. We're just doing stuff, right? We're not thinking about the vision that we're trying to work towards all the time, specifically in each of those areas. Like if you just think the customer box, for example, what's my ideal customer outcome? What is it? Do I want to grow market share? Do I want to have fewer customers, but deeper connections? Do I want to have a lot more customers and do more volume? What is it I'm trying to focus on in that customer aspect of the business? And when we talk to accountants, we avoid that area typically. I don't want to talk about selling or marketing stuff because that's scary, right, Dan?
Yeah. No, I 100%. And I think that's one of the areas that people get the most overwhelmed with, because it forces them outside of that comfort zone of sometimes talking about what their goals are and what their objectives are. And I think that's a part about that intimate conversation, which is it's truly also sharing what your future is and what your goals and objectives are too. And being empowered to actually share that what you want to try to achieve also too at the same time. And I think that's something that really is oftentimes missed as a part of those conversation is how do you actually make sure that, and I love that you brought this up of the things that are good.
Yeah.
Because too oftentimes when we start a brand new client, we dive into it and say, well, the banks aren't wrecked. Bank feed hasn't been touched.
Well,
this isn't
Dan,
done.
You have a match as your symbol. So what you know about is the stuff that's on fire for those clients, right? That's what we go, no, there's a fire over here. There's a fire over there. There's a fire over there.
100%. Oh, that's one of the things when we talked about that actually as a part of our, when we picked our logo and we picked our name is how do we make sure that it's not personified as we're just here to jump from one blaze to another.
Yeah.
But how do we change it to where we're the person being the catalyst to help change that vision of where they're going? And I think it all starts with how we as a person change the attitude towards the intent of what it is that we want. And it really, it makes you actually change. And I love that you use a grid for it because it forces you to say, let's talk about each of these sections in this process to ensure that we don't just focus on the negative. We look at the positive. We look at the great things that are happening in each of the areas, and we don't miss all of the good things that are happening that can be built on and can help to be focused on towards what we're trying to achieve.
And remember, we're this big ear thing, right? This is a way to help us have a structured way to listen intently to what that client is sharing. I've got a 100%. Form I got to fill out now. I got a bingo card. You're going to talk to me as a client, and I'm going to write in the squares, and I'm going to spend a bunch of time, Dan, trying to figure out if I have it in the right box or not, which is not the point.
Yeah.
But this gives me a listening guide, a listening aid. And by showing this, even if you don't use it with the client, show that to a client and they go, wow, you ask about that stuff? Nobody's ever asked that. We shift the value perception for ourselves. And we also give them some comfort that we're going to really dig into understanding what's going on in that business, which is what our clients, I believe, really want us to do.
Well, and I think that's the part that's really important about it too, is when you have that proactive conversation with the client, you really understand what they're trying to achieve, and also as an accountant, how you can measure it.
That's right. That's the other thing.
That's the hardest part sometimes just cash balance is not the best solution. AR turnover is not the best solution. Sometimes
but we go there, don't we, Dan? Because we like those things.
Well, they're easy oftentimes to find, right? They're the first things that pull up on the P&L or your balance sheet. They're easy things to reference. And so, when you have that deeper conversation, it starts to trigger a more valuable discussion with the client to say, okay, well, how do I get this for you? Oh, you want to understand click count. You want to understand these different pieces and how your turnover on your web, your web presence or whatever it is. Okay, great.
Yeah.
How does that associate to your marketing spend? You're now focusing on how you can actually pull essential information into your financial conversation to give them valuable turnover details so that they can be able to make better decisions.
Okay, I'm going to quit my job and come to work for you, Dan.
No, don't do it. Don't do it. Keep doing what you're doing.
I know. We had a great conversation, and I forgot how just so in alignment we are in terms of how we think. And there are a ton of people. So we just celebrated. I just did an email blast to my list, my email group, and we have 60 people that have gone through this training so far since I started it, and I'm just so thrilled. And those people, all of them are in alignment, and there's some people on here in LinkedIn that are commenting. They came to this program because they believe the same things that we do. And that's so exciting for me. But I also hope that we're getting this message in front of clients who don't know what accountants can really offer. And one of my next goals is to start speaking at business events to educate clients that you're not asking enough of your accountant, because there are a lot of them who aren't. 60 out of how many people who are in accounting? I don't know, 800,000 accountants out there. 60 of them have been through this training in the last year. A ton of more have been through it with Edie and other events. But that's a very small percentage of even the new accountants coming on board. What are the rest of us doing? Traditional service stuff. Our clients don't know to demand more of us, and that there are opportunities like this for them to really partner with their accountant and achieve their goals, not just learn how bad or good things are as of today, but what can I do differently tomorrow? And how can I get my teams to connect around the financial goals that I have as an owner?
100%. And I think the part that I loved about what you, what I love about what you're saying with that too, is it's not about creating 12,000 other products that your accounting firm services. It's about you paying it. It starts with you paying attention to what your client needs.
And that's what Edie calls client-centric versus firm-centric. Most of us have, I got this bunch of stuff that I do, and I'm going to try to match a service to anything that you say. When I have a hammer, everything is a nail, right? So I've got a service I'm going to try to, versus what do you need? And then how can I help you figure that out? And it may not be me that helps you, but I can direct 100%. You to somebody.
Well, and I think one of the things, and I will say this, one of the most positive changes I think that actually happened with COVID, truthfully, was that customers started more proactively diving into the processes that they have in their organizations.
That is very
and true. So I get more clients now that already have an associated tech stack set up, which is, I mean, that's my bread and butter. That's the part that I love more than anything.
Me too. I like that too.
I love it. But to be honest, it's one of those pieces where they are trying to put something together and they need your help to be able to make sure it's the most efficient and optimized, right?
Yeah.
But the part that goes along with it too is they're looking for someone to take it to that next level so they can get a better return out of it. If we just dive in and let it live the way that they built it, oftentimes they're left more frustrated than the time that before they even came in to work with you.
Yeah.
Because you didn't help them. You just gave them worse than what they had before in some cases because it wasn't your system.
Again, Ed Kless, who's one of the most quotable people I've ever met, who's, again, a timesheet guy. He's a Sage employee. He's a brilliant genius. You never want to be a presenter across from him if you're at a conference. If he's in the session at the same time you are, everybody goes to his. One time I had to do that. He rolled the piano in for his session, and I was doing nerdy accounting stuff in mine. So, but he said, now I forgot what I was going to say. I got all excited about Ed Kless. Efficiency is doing the wrong things faster. And that's what accountants have focused on. And that's what you're saying, Dan. We can come 100%. In and we can automate the crappy processes that you have in place, or we can back you up a step and go, what are you trying to accomplish? What are your ideal outcomes in different areas? And then how can we configure whatever systems that you have to better support what you ultimately want to accomplish? But keeping the customer's requirements in focus, not our own internal efficiency, how we can do this crap that we're doing faster.
100%. And I agree with that 1000%. And I will say,
I got to 1,000 from 100. I like
it. from my perspective and the way that I feel about it, historically, we were very single channel or single software centric for a lot of our tools and a lot of our tech stack items.
Yeah.
And what we found over the last 2 years was that not all of those tools were perfect for every single organization. Right. And it's not to say they were bad tools. It was not to say that they had the wrong features, but it was to say that they were not meeting the holistic needs that client needed because they didn't have all of the tool functions that client needed to evaluate. Yeah. And so we had to change the way and we're changing the way that we evaluate our clients' circumstances to be able to come in and say, okay, great. This client needs tool A, B, C, D, and J, not A, B, C, D, and E, because A, B, C, D, and E is actually going to cause them to spend 4 times more time and produce less value for them from a return on it. The tech stack portion is great, but also at the same point in time too, I can't give them a better conversation without J.
So are you looking at mid-market, other applications beyond the small business solutions that we have? In our space, that's where people go. There's a high-end product based on NAV, Microsoft Dynamics NAV, now called Business Central, where wineries go for things that they can't get in some of the small business apps, like multi-dimensional, multi-location tracking, multi-dimensional price matrices, integrated processes, customized processes. There are things that we can't do right now in the small business space. So how are you meeting those needs, Dan?
So for me, we're looking at it, our customer base really in a lot of cases is the 5 to 10 employees is the average piece with, one
Yeah.
to $10 million in annual revenue.
Yeah.
And that's really been the sweet spot for us for a really long time. And so a
Yeah.
lot of times we look at it from the perspective of, if we're looking at a payroll application specifically, it's
Yeah.
what's your customer or your employee dynamics?
Yeah.
Do you have an employee group that is lasting more than 2 or 3 years? Do
Yeah.
you have an employee group that you want to offer 401k benefits, retention, LMS tools, functions from that standpoint? Because if that's the case that you're going down, you probably actually want to go potentially with a PEO, especially if you're advancing into more states and actually having a more robust function.
Explain that PEO.
The PEO provides PEOs are wonderful tools because they allow you to be able to grow into multiple states and allow you to be able to have a lot of the bells and whistles that small businesses can't get usually on their own, without spending astronomical amounts of cost.
What does PEO stand for?
Oh, Professional Employee Organization. If I remember correctly.
Thank you. I know we use the acronym so much.
Yeah.
So
definitely.
Basically, you hand over your employees to a company.
Correct.
They own them in a certain sense, and then they manage all the crap that goes with it, and you pay them a fee.
Yeah.
So that's a bunch of opportunity in that space. There has been for a while.
And you usually offset the cost of the fees with other functions that you would have paid anyways. But because their network is so much bigger on how many people are in it, they're able to provide you with greater benefit for those larger employee groups. So you can provide LMSs, which are, learning management systems. You can provide, better health insurance options because it's focused on specific networks and things of that nature. And so there's a lot of really good things you can do that. But if your employee turnover is every 8 months, it's not a really good solution for you.
Yeah.
Because now you're just spending a whole bunch of money on something you don't really need. And you're now frustrated because it's a more consuming time. It actually takes a whole lot more time to get your employees onboarded. So you may look at something that's a little more faster and streamlined and a little more technology based to be able to get your employees into the system and moving forward.
So I just wanted to quickly have this slide that's been sitting here. I didn't say anything about it. This is the customer's view on the services that we offer as we move forward. I got to level 3 with the other one. Level 4 is where, to me, we really do something totally different from what we're used to doing as accountants. And this is connecting the line workers, the front line workers in the company, to the high level financial goals of the owner. And this is after we've educated everybody at level 2 and also discovered deeply some of the challenges and then created plans. But now in level 4, we look at the activities that those employees have to perform to deliver the financial outcomes we want to produce. And so this is where, for me, it's fun. I get to go to wineries and explain to them how to drive revenues in the tasting room. And that, look out, y'all, if you come to Napa Valley, that's often not by putting more people into the retail space. It's about being smarter about what we do for the people that already are in there. And that is getting them to buy another bottle of wine, or getting them to buy the red wine, which is more pricey than the white wine, or looking at the mix, but educating those line workers about the control they have at the point of sale with that customer. And those are the kind of things that we traditionally never even get to. We're staying up here in 1 and 2 potentially, and never get to the point where we really tell people how to change behaviors that can then support those financial outcomes that we're trying to achieve. And then level 5 is just rechecking, resetting, redefining measurements, and keeping the wheels moving in that business. So this becomes a relationship that lasts for a very long time if we do it right. And not because we need to bill them forever, but we can check back in and help them modify whatever counting they came up with to keep themselves on track. So this is what's fun. I think it's fun at every level to do things where clients go, oh my gosh, I get it now.
Yeah.
But at 4, we really get those frontline workers who we leave out of the financial conversations to be now part of the solution.
Definitely. Well, you're linking those people who are starting to try to live the vision of the entrepreneur and who are trying to function in it to actually match the vision of the organization. And they're now being aligned, and they have goals, and they have metrics, and they have expectations, and they now can help you to achieve it. And I think that's the part that's the beauty of the way that the system is structured, is it doesn't leave anybody out. It brings everybody into the process and everybody into the consideration of it. And so it creates accountability to where it's not just the accountant talking to the business owner about this person didn't do this and that's why they're failing. It's no, here's how we can help them achieve because we know your story. And here's how we're going to help them become successful by creating this plan and strategy around it.
Yeah, and just to see clients understand, and this I just wanted to show. This is what the training site looks like, and I had a animation that clearly doesn't work when I store my slides in here. But and then this is the online training. You go in online. You could do it on your own time. It's a do it yourself DIY option is the base entry level you can do. Then I offer you an option where you do the base thing, and then you add a webinar once a month with me. And then the commitment that Dan's team has made is a 6-month training cohort where we meet every week and talk about the tools that you do on your own time. And then I help connect the dots between those tools and what I do with wineries and my own clients and help you bring them to life in your own practice and connect them to other tools and other things that I've encountered over the years in doing these tools. So the basic materials are fabulous on their own. Edie Osborne, whose picture you see kind of there, created them. She thought of everything. She laid it out so that we can follow a scripted program to deliver systematic, repeatable services. And what she says is most of us accountants are doing random acts of consulting. And this toolkit is about systematizing those consulting acts so you can get better at them and add greater value to your clients. So Dan, I think you went into the toolkit at one point.
I did.
Yeah, and you click through it. It's got videos you can play, and then you can download a whole bunch of tools. There's over 100 different things like that. And this is how you do it. You've heard from everybody and their brother that you need to. This is what you do, where you start, what you say, and how you do.
Well, I think, yeah, well, 100%. I think one of the pieces that I was going to mention on this is when we initially started talking about this in 2000, in 2020, not 2000.
2000.
Feels like,
you were
feels
barely
like
born in 2000, Dan.
Oh, no. You know, we talked about actually potentially doing the online training and the DIY system. And I think the big part for me with it is because I like you said, I went through, I looked at the modules and I was like, this is great. There's a lot of hands-on functions. There's a lot of good things we can take away from it. And we ultimately decided to go with the group training aspect. And the reason why is I really wanted my team to have that accountability by someone who understood the logic and development and the context that was being trained with it. And it was more to me about providing them with the resources to think outside the box instead of saying, cool, this is some great learning expectations. And yes, it does provide a vast amount of learning expertise or avenues across different types of learning medias, which I love. But also that conversation changes the way people think, and it changes the way my team is thinking. And I love that it's forcing them to think outside the box and holding them accountable to that process too on a weekly basis.
It's fantastic. I'm so happy to have it. I'm so honored to have them in my class. So with that, Dan, I think we've covered a whole bunch of stuff. I don't want to keep people here all day. We could. I would love to talk to you days, weeks in a row. Definitely. But what would you like to make your final thought, Dan? What would you like people to know? And I have your info to contact you if clients are looking for help with their business. You should be their first stop. And if accountants are looking for help, and also added my speaker site in case anybody's looking for a nerdy speaker.
You know, definitely for us as a firm, you know, we definitely love helping small business to be able to grow and develop and to be able to solve the problems that they're running into and in being able to grow and develop. And that's anything from a tech stack issue that they're running into or trying to figure out their cash flow or trying to figure out how to be able to manage expectations within their firm. I mean, within the organization, I mean, any customer who's looking for that, we would love to be able to help them with that. And we have a great, you know, vast team of over 30 people who have, you know, expansive knowledge and understanding of how to be able to do that. And so any way we can do that, we would love to be a part of their world to be able to do so. For organizations or firms who are looking to be able to gain knowledge and understanding, truthfully, we chose this program because I truly believe that you're one of the best people out there to be able to teach and coach on this type of stuff. And I think the program is a great context on truly how a conversation should evolve with a relationship with a customer. We need to stop thinking just on the transaction level, and we need to start making these relationships personable, and we need to really start pushing to it. And I love that that's the focus and the energy that you've put into it. And I just appreciate you giving me the chance to have my team spend weeks and time with you over the next couple of months.
It's wonderful. You are, I couldn't pay you to say better things. I really appreciate it, Dan. I appreciate you being here, for taking the time. I hope you've gotten something out of this, audience. This will be recorded. We'll share it in a recorded form other ways. But I thank everybody for being here. I thank my team for supporting me in getting this put together. And Dan, it's an absolute pleasure to talk with you. And I hope you go forth and have a great rest of the week. And again, a million thank yous for being here and sharing.
Thank you. Always an honor to you as well. Thank you so much.
Keep up the great work, Dan. Keep making an impact or igniting activities on the part of your clients, whichever way you want to call it.
Definitely. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.